Alright, so we're back on our basketball field because yesterday and today we talked about two different types of composition. The main ones, it was symmetry and rule of thirds. Now I kind of want to show you a little bit how you would use different composition on that field. So let's go. We're gonna take our phone, we're gonna look at that place, and that's all those exercises I'm doing right now. I want you to do them with your eyes. Remember, keep your camera for next week. The most important is to see things before you ever start capturing. If you're not able to see them, you won't be able to capture them. So we've got massive leading lines. What are leading lines? Leading lines are basically lead lines in your composition that will lead toward a certain point. And where you place that ending point will actually determine a lot how your image will look. So now we're back. If we have that very basic photo where we're like kind of centered, we have the basketball basket right here in the middle, we have those two leading lines coming from each edge of the photo, and that photo is kind of ending here. Now if you want to make it better, and that's why composition is so important, it's just small tweaks. You're going to use that ending line with the train track on your lower third over here. Then you're going to keep that symmetry between the two poles here, and maybe you want to move until you find that basket in between those two poles, if possible. If not possible, that's fine. But what could you do even better? Because right now you almost split between 1/3 of the ground, 1/3 a little bit in the sky, and 1/3 kind of in the middle. What if you could make it even more visually appealing? Let's drop down on the floor to look at. As I mentioned to you, there we go. If we get lower on the ground, what happens is we're giving more dominance to one object over the other. And that is something you really want to remember in photography, is choose what you really want to focus on. So here we would have, for example, those two train tracks taking most of the image, ending really out there in the corner, starting in each top left and right corner, and kind of hitting that basketball pole on the lower third line. So the reason you would actually shoot like that is because, as I mentioned, you want dominance. You want one area to be more important than the other when you're composing images. The reason is that it makes it easier for the viewer to understand what you're trying to show them, and it also makes it a little bit easier to get sucked into those images. Now, composition wise, there's a ton you can do. You can do it landscape, you can do it portrait, and then if we move on that end, what happens, we're gonna find the symmetry that we were talking about the other day, because those train tracks are just perfect. That's why I like to shoot here to show you guys, because we can find all types of composition. As you can see over there in the background, the train tracks are going very long, and they're kind of split equally between those two parts. So, and it's gonna really lead deep inside that image. So you could go over there and you could use that frame to really take portraits, to take photos of people, or simply to take urban landscape photos. That would look great simply because of those leading lines. So we saw leading lines, we saw symmetry, we saw that rule of thirds, how I use it. Now the last thing I will mention that is not necessarily present here is when you have a sky in your image, for example, and you can see the horizon. Here we can't, we're in the city. You want to also choose, like I mentioned with those train tracks, if you want more of the sky or more of the ground. That is the most important, is always choose what should dominate in your images. That is number one.